it entirely. However, also keep in mind that there will be a few exceptions to this rule on the list. So in regards to this condition, characters such as Monkey D. Dragon, the Gorosei, Basil Hawkins, Yarouge, and X Drake will not be on this list. And the final thing you need to know about before we get into the list is that the way I will be formatting this top 10 is by starting each character off with a detailed description about everything you need to know about the character in question, and then giving my personal analysis on the information I just relayed to you. So there will be a few instances where I sound like I'm repeating myself. Also, we will be covering a lot of information for each character, so be prepared for a lot of knowledge being thrown your way. But of course, we won't be covering everything, just the things I think are most important in determining how powerful these characters really are. And finally, now that you know what to expect, let's begin. Number 10, Monkey D. Luffy. I'm sure most of you are fully aware of Luffy's abilities because he is the main character after all. But for the sake of keeping this list somewhat professional, I'm going to be going over all of his notable qualities anyway. And I want to say sorry in advance because we are going to be covering a lot of information about Luffy. So now might be the time to go grab some snacks. So the very first thing we are going to go over is his physical abilities without the use of his Devil Fruit. Considering that Luffy is the main character of the series, it is no surprise to hear that he has an enormous amount of physical strength, to the point where he can easily lift and shatter large boulders, push buildings apart, and shatter steel easily with his hands. Additionally, he can easily flip over and throw big men who are over twice the size of himself. And Luffy himself has also said that due to his training with his grandfather Garth as a kid, he has been able to throw a punch as powerful as a pistol round since he was 7 years old. Which, if that's as strong as his fists were then, I can't even begin to think of what we could compare them to now. Luffy also has incredible speed to the point where he can easily anticipate his enemies' movements and in turn counter their attacks. And even though Luffy's normal speed is nothing special on its own, it is multiplied greatly with the use of his Gear Second technique. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Luffy also has amazing durability and endurance, being able to endure a ton of powerful attacks from his enemies and still continue to fight. Some of the attacks he's endured would easily kill a normal person. And of course a lot of this is due to the help he gets from being a rubber man. But for instance, he is able to take on these same deadly attacks while they are imbued with haki that bypass his Devil Fruit powers. And yet he can still get back up to fight. The best example of Luffy's endurance would be his fight with Cracker, where Luffy fought him for 11 hours straight, using techniques such as Gear Fourth that really eat up his energy. And he was still able to defeat Cracker by a small margin. But it doesn't even stop there. Luffy was also able to withstand attacks from Sanji shortly after his fierce battle with Cracker. And then shortly after this encounter with Sanji, Luffy managed to defeat most of Big Mom's army that went after him before he was finally taken down, which is absolutely insane. Another unique ability Luffy has developed is his immunity to poison, due to Luffy surviving the poison from Magellan's Doku Doku no Mi. Because of this, there has currently not been a poison shown to affect Luffy very much at all. Next, let's talk about Luffy's intelligence, or should I say, lack of. Don't get me wrong, Luffy isn't stupid by any means, but he is also by no means one of the smarter characters in the series, and he is without a doubt one of, if not the least intelligent character that will be featured on this list. Luffy has a very broad imagination and is very creative, especially with his Devil Fruit. He has great social skills, which is great for making new friends and recruiting allies even if he doesn't mean to. And he's very good at achieving the impossible, simply because he can easily think of a way to achieve these tasks. However, usually Luffy tends to think of the worst possible way to go about it, which in turn causes a ton of problems and destruction for anyone involved, and often gets himself and his crew into some pretty detrimental situations. So intelligence isn't really one of his strong suits. Luffy also has a very strong sense of willpower, but we'll talk more about that in a second. When it comes to haki, Luffy is one of the more prominent users currently. The main reason for this is because Luffy is one of the few characters that can utilize all three types of